welcome back to the UK.
Oh, yes, I'm back. I've hardly unpacked, My suitcase is still over there in the lounge corner because I was so desperate that we can record the second episode of
Hello, dear. Oh, gosh, it's so cringy and I love
It
it.
is cringy, but that's who we are anyway.
Well, you've just come back from Budapest, which is actually where we used to go on our annual drama trip with school.
That's right, yes. How many did you do?
I did 3?
3, right.
10, 11, 10. Oh, no, 9. Did I do 9, 10, 11, 12? Or 10, 11, 12? 3 or 4?
3 or 4, right. Very good.
And you did?
26.
Yes, quite a few. So you're quite an expert when it comes to Budapest, aren't you?
I am absolutely an expert when it comes to Budapest.
Well, I'll tell you what, as you're such an expert, why don't you give our lovely listeners here a quick guide? Why don't you give us the best top 3 things or places to visit in Budapest?
Well, definitely in Budapest, you must go to the coffee houses and have coffee and cake. They're the most amazing cakes. And there are so many coffee houses around Budapest. Sadly, there's also a Starbucks now. Don't ask me why. But anyway, there we are. That's one of the things. And of course, to go for a stroll along the Danube, particularly up in the castle area, where there are the most amazing views of the whole city. Particularly, I would say, at night. The city is really beautifully illuminated at night.
Fisherman's Bastions.
Fisherman's
That's
Bastion.
a fantastic place to go at night.
That's the place to go. And also to have a look at the various squares. And I really would recommend a new attraction in Budapest.
Oh, yes.
In the city park. It's called the House of Music. And
yes.
It's a brilliant exhibition which uses all the latest digital technology for this hands-on history of music through the ages, right up to modern day. It really is something else.
It's fantastic. When I went to Budapest in April last year. I remember you recommended that. It's fantastic. Right. The building itself is the architecture on it's phenomenal. It's got it's kind of like origami. The roof.
It was by a Japanese designer.
Yeah, well there you go. It's absolutely phenomenal, and the exhibition itself takes you through the history of music with a focus on Budapest as the country and the what do you call them?
Hungarian folk music.
Yes,
and Mozart and Liszt.
And the effect the war had,
yes.
and really, really, really interesting. So definitely, if you're in Budapest, I'd say those are definitely some of the top 3 things.
The House of Music. There you go.
Yes. Well, let's get this episode started, and then we can reveal what we're going to talk about today.
Exactly.
Welcome to Hello Dear, the podcast where age is just a number and opinions come with a touch of laughter. I'm Ciaran, the young perspective on the twists and turns of life today.
And I'm Neil, the seasoned voice of yesterday, with a flair for drama and a love of life. Together we're here to chat about everything under the sun, from the latest trends to the timeless tales of our own experiences. So grab your favourite beverage, get comfy, and join us as we explore the complexities of life.
Fantastic. Now, we were just talking in the kitchen earlier. We did have a cup of tea. We let Neil come in and have a cup of tea. He didn't get to unpack, but we managed to have a little catch up and a cup of tea. And we were just talking about what we thought about each other at school. Obviously, as maybe you've gathered or maybe you haven't yet, Neil was my drama teacher in school for far too many years. I'd say teacher as well. That's a very loose term. But we were talking about what we thought of each other, and we didn't want to go into too much detail, so we thought we'd get the mics out, record an episode, and what our perceptions were of each other, I guess, at school, and where that's led us to now.
What set this off was I've often talked with ex-students about their perceptions of their drama tours that they went on. Quite a few went on for more than 1 year.
It was quite common, wasn't it?
Very popular. And very often they'll come out with all the silly things they did as students, like running up and down hotel corridors and all of that. And that used to upset me, actually, because obviously being the drama teacher and organising the shows, and we did go in theatres and that was the main achievement.
Yeah.
That really was the main achievement. Can you imagine thinking that first time, which is 1990 actually, of my school play, the school play I've directed, is now in a theatre in a foreign country. It's quite something, really.
You know what? I don't think the students ever actually managed to comprehend what we were doing, because we did a professional children's theatre the tours that I did. We did a school, and then
A university theatre.
a university theatre, and there was 2 plays that we took, and I don't think it ever kind of clicked with any of us, which is probably why we didn't name it as like, the things, and students will always be students and say we have fun doing other things, but I don't think it ever clicked with us that actually we've done a play and we've taken it across Europe essentially to Budapest, which isn't a place you'd necessarily visit, and then we've performed it. I think the challenging thing for us is we knew the English was spoken and taught, but they definitely didn't pick up on all of it, and I think we didn't get the reactions and stuff, so it was quite loose performances. Is that fair to say? They weren't as regimed and rehearsed, and things changed. We had to cut things down, and it was good fun. But I think that was probably why. But
it's quite just amazing that I was in the background there, backstage, and these students and school children would come in from Budapest and all the way around. Some of them would bust in, and they're watching this production which we did at the school back in England, and it always gave me a thrill.
Yeah,
always gave me a thrill. Absolutely wonderful. So I'm going to ask you the most difficult question, and please be diplomatic.
Okay.
As we are going viral. What were your perceptions of me as a teacher when you were at school? Which was about,
it was
7 years ago.
7
years ago I left.
7 years ago you left?
Well,
no.
7 years ago I stopped teaching.
Well, you stopped teaching about 3 different times across the time I was at school, didn't you? You had about 4 retirement dues. It was ridiculous. But I would started at the school in 2012, and I left in 20.
My last official lessons were in summer 2017, and then I carried on at the school and directed plays and organised the Hungary trip. So for another 2.5 years. So it's like that, really.
Yeah.
So I last taught you when you were in year 11.
That was right, yes, because you got me my lovely A star in drama. Yeah.
A star?
I know.
God.
It didn't go so well at A level.
Never does.
No. What was my first perception? I remember you were very fun, and I couldn't take you seriously. I will always remember that one of the first things you always said to us as a class when we were being noisy. Do you remember what it was you used to call us all the time?
No.
You used to call us Radioactive Roosters. And I thought, my goodness, this is the campest man. He's going around calling us year 8s or... Oh, I don't know. What year did you start teaching? Was it year 8 or year 9?
I don't remember.
I can't remember. But
I haven't got my
oh, you're a
timetable with
bunch
me.
of radioactive roosters, and it was all this very flamboyant language. And
I'd forgotten that one.
yes, that was one of your favourites, actually. I remember that. You were just a fun and approachable character. I think you always check we're all okay, and people are probably thinking I'm saying all these nice things just because I can. But no, you were lovely. Your lessons probably weren't as structured as some of my other lessons, but I think that comes with drama. I think drama's kind of a looser lesson as opposed to like English or maths. But there were definitely some messy lessons and. But, I got my A star, so, about the only subject I did
You probably
do well in.
seem messy because you're not in front of a desk.
Well, this is it. I think there's that, yeah.
Watching a whiteboard or a screen or something.
Yeah.
They were quite structured, actually.
Well, you have to say that, don't you? You can't.
But it is interesting the way students see you, as a person.
How did you think you were perceived? What did you think?
I never thought about it.
Not once? Never crossed your mind?
Not really, no. I never thought about it. I just got on with it.
Okay.
And I think you can't be forever thinking, I wonder, do they like me? No, you can't think of that as a teacher. You're there to do the job, and if they do grow to like you, fine. That's a bonus.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is, I always said to myself, I would never want to be in the position where I didn't retire and I got fed up with the job and became bitter and twisted because no student should go through with a teacher who's bitter and twisted and unhappy, and obviously is showing it to them in the class. I had a few of those when I was at school.
Well, you can tell, and I think
know.
I was probably taught by a few as well that maybe still haven't retired, but they lose the fun of teaching.
I did lose it for a while. I did lose it for a while at one point in the early 2000s. I did go through that. But I came back. I bounced back.
Yeah.
But yeah, you don't know how. My funny story on that one is with my very first English class at the school. I taught English, and this is in the 1980s. This is in the days when year 8 were called second year. And I had a particularly bright top set for English. They were really, really good. And I was teaching them Shakespeare. I thought, oh my gosh, I can teach these second years. I mean, we went through a Shakespeare play, and it was great fun. And I was so full of it that I didn't notice in this classroom, this is in the days of old desks, that this student, Rob was his name, who was very bright, he'd come in with a camera. This is before mobile phones and, snapping away with your phone. He'd come in with this camera, hidden it behind the desk, and while I was looking the other way to the other end of the class, chattering away, he took a photograph of me teaching. Now, not only did he do that, those of you listeners may remember this from years ago, he actually went and had the photograph developed, or whatever else was on the reel of film. And about a week or so later, he came in and said, "Sir, I've got something to show you. You ought to see this." And I said, "I don't want to see your holiday snaps, thank you. I need it on the lesson." And there it was. There was I holding forth on Shakespeare. And I've been like that ever since in my lessons,
What was it? How did you react? Were you annoyed? Were you happy?
I was annoyed.
Yeah.
And then I just smiled. I thought that there was such a lovely class. I couldn't send him to the headmaster and all that nonsense.
Did you have many moments during teaching where you kind of clicked that you'd made an impact on students, and you kind of thought, do you know what, this is making it worth? Like, I'm enjoying it, and this is why I'm doing it. It's worth it.
I think it's more than the results. I mean, the results do say an awful lot, I did have a reasonably good result. Some years were worse than others. It's the same with every family. And now it's very different. Education much more different now, much more structured now, and much more results, even more results driven now.
Funding's based on results, isn't it? Like school funding and
all that.
You've got to,
yeah, it's very different now. But I think the big thing is when you see a child growing up through drama, and they're on stage, and they get it. They do it really, really well. And they may have come in very nervous and very lacking in confidence. Even those who've only got a few lines, but they come in and they do it really well.
Yeah.
That meant as much to me as people with A stars, and that sort of thing. Really, it's watching people grow through drama or through English. I remember getting some wonderful essays from kids, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is worthwhile now.
My essays, was that?
Not always, no. But, anyway, enough of me.
Well, back to you. What was your perception of me as a student?
I don't remember. Well, you were very bright. You were very artistic. I remember that.
I still am, I suppose. That's kind of lived through.
You're a photographer now, and you worked very well. And you did Midsummer Night's Dream for me at the Rose Theatre. The first time we went to Rose Theatre.
Do you remember who I played?
I do. Hippolyta.
I did, in my lovely dress.
Yeah, and a wig.
I didn't play a man until sixth form.
You did.
Will, I played Will.
Yeah.
But I played Will, who was a boy in Shakespeare's theatre company who played girls.
That's right.
So
well,
that was my first male
really?
role, which
Yeah. But anyway, it was. And that's a big deal, wasn't it? Doing the Rose Theatre and everything. You were a good student. You're quite talented and everything. You were very good at group work. I remember that. You know bother. Really.
I always enjoyed working with other people. Even now,
Yeah.
it's I can work on my own, but I'd rather work in a team, I think.
Right.
It's funny that now that you're saying all of those things, that's sort of the attributes that I've got now as an adult. Like, I said I was always creative, and like that's what I do in my spare time. I make things and I create work, and it's really funny how you say that's just.
I mean, I always used to grab people who were artistic and could do things the school play,
Yeah,
And you did those animations for Christmas Carol.
I did.
Which were really wonderful. Things like that.
And then Frankenstein as well the year
You did
after.
Frankenstein,
That windmill spinning. That was
right,
a good feature.
You did all that. So, I mean, it was very useful, for me and all that.
Oh, so you were just using me as a
Oh,
student.
exactly.
Is that what you're admitting that now?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's all you were. It is interesting to see how people think of you. And the trouble is, there's only one of me in front of the whole class, and there've been so many students I've taught. Sometimes someone comes up to me in the street, says hello and how are you, and I don't remember who they are.
Well, how many students have you taught in your lifetime?
Oh
You've
gosh,
got
I can't remember.
thousands.
Yeah.
You can't be expected to know them all.
No. But yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think moving on from that, we now have a podcast together.
We do.
Which was
lovely. Your idea.
It was my idea.
Yes.
I brought the idea to you. I thought this. There's not many people who can say they're friends with a teacher who taught them at school.
Yes.
So I thought, why don't we talk about how we became friends after school? Because obviously you taught me and we weren't friends at school or anything like that. So I think I was in my second or third year at university and I was getting ready to write my dissertation.
Yeah.
And I had my...
This was in the lockdown, wasn't it?
Yeah, lockdown was second year. So I think I was working on my project in second year while getting ready to write the dissertation.
Yeah.
And then I wanted you to read the dissertation, help me with that, and then invite you to my third year show.
Yes.
Which was a body of work that I'd just come out of a relationship. And it was a body of work sort of exploring that. A set of 8 images. It was quite vulnerable, actually. I think I'd never made... I was second year, I started to make work... I suppose they're what you'd call nudes, but not in the sense of nudes. They're artistic representations without clothes. I don't know how you say that without... But, yeah, and I think I reached out to you thinking that I knew you were gay, obviously. And and my dissertation was about activism and what pushed the AIDS crisis and what resolved that. And I thought you'd have an insight on that, considering you lived through that period of time, as opposed to me, who had to kind of research and look into that. And I was focused on the artists at the time. ACT UP was a big artistic organisation that pushed the kind of equality and pushed the government to make a lot of decisions, both in America and over here in the UK. Yeah, so I guess it was kind of that project that kind of pushed me to reach out to you. And then it was only really after I finished university that we started meeting up for the odd coffee here and there.
Yeah, I had to mark that dissertation. You asked me to look at it, didn't you?
I did. I can't remember if I'd submitted it by then or not, but you definitely went through it and came back with a lot of feedback.
I did. Yeah, we won't bore the listeners with that.
No, or the red pen.
In fact, maybe on another podcast, you can read it out for them. I'm sure they'd be delighted to
I'm
hear
sure
it.
they would be bored to death. I can't imagine it was the most thrilling piece of writing, but...
Yeah, it's a great pleasure to talk to ex-students and share their lives a bit when they move on into all kinds of spheres, not just drama and acting and all of that. I find that a great pleasure.
I always wondered what teachers...
One of the riches of my life is meeting up with old students and talking. Some of them are very close friends now, very close, and it's nice to watch them move on in their lives, and not just out of a sense of, oh, I've done a good job, it's just to see how people change and develop. I mean, people do change, and they change careers, and it's not just about the people who, as I say, have gone into the acting business or film, or I know quite a few of those. Some of them are behind the camera now in different ways. But it's other people in different kinds of spheres of life, like yourself.
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, I've turned into I think I struggled with drama towards the end of sixth form. There was some stuff going on that I'm not going to talk about in this episode, which left me to sixth form was a bit of a all over the place for me, and then I think drama and learning lines, there was a lot of anxiety with that, and I just couldn't. So I moved more into the tech side of things. So I started doing the tech for the productions with one of my best friends, and
for me,
yeah, and it was for you, and then I think the last tour of Budapest, I was just doing the tech for you with.
I don't think you went on the last tour.
No, not the very last. As in my last tour.
Yeah.
We were doing the tech, and yeah, it's interesting that you say that. It's quite nice to see people's journeys as they develop. I'm friends with my who was the head of my course at university as well, and we keep in touch and see each other every couple of months. And you can. It's really nice to have that relationship past uni where someone has seen you grow, they know your potential, and I feel in some ways they keep pushing you to kind of. I think when you leave school in that kind of education environment, even university, you have to push yourself, and if you want to do things, you've got to do it. There's no targets, there's no deadlines to meet. You know, if you want to write a book, if you want to create a photographic exhibition, you've got to go do that yourself. And I think it's hard. It's very hard on top of working full time, and you know, unless you somehow land a full-time artistic career, it's hard. And it's really nice to have those people around you that know what you're capable of, have seen what you've produced, know whether you can do better or not, and they push you in that direction. I mean, even when we've done stuff for this podcast now, it's great that you've still got that kind of teacher mindset, because you've gone through and gone, no, we'll rewrite it like this. And it's like, oh, of course. No, but you laugh.
Can't stop myself.
No, you can't. I know you can't. But it's great to have that knowledgeable kind of influence, I guess.
There's another side to it as well. I mean, I've known some of my ex-students for a long, long time. And occasionally they go through their own problems still.
Mm.
You know, and they can always come and talk to me, and I've done the same. You know, sometimes people do come up with problems and you can help them still, you know, which I really like, you know, doing. I'm happy to do. I think one of the things I miss about not being a teacher anymore is actually having those moments to help students, pastorally, as they say.
Yeah, not necessarily just with the work, but
yeah,
when you're approached, like, you know, this is going on, what do I do? Yeah. But then you still do that now as a friend. I suppose instead of students, you've got your friends now, and I'm sure you're quite an approachable character. Well, most of the time.
Yeah.
Where do you think we're going to be in 5-10 years' time?
You and me?
Yeah. Do you reckon we're going to be rich and famous? Do you reckon this podcast is going to blow up? Are we going to have a Radio 1 show?
I might not be around anymore.
Oh, don't say that. Don't say that.
Podcasts will be a thing of the past. There'll be something else.
They're all the craze at the minute, I know. We had to jump on that bandwagon.
But, I mean, everything changes so quickly.
Yeah.
It's this, it's that, it's the other. You know, everything changes so quickly. The podcast will be finished. What will it be next, you know? Maybe we'll be AI intelligence.
But we might not have to do it. Might just have robots doing it for us.
Exactly. I doubt that.
No, I don't want it to be like that. No.
No, I think that the people who are creating technology, I'm talking about the big guys whose names I won't mention, are in their own world, and they presume that everybody else wants to be in their world. Not necessarily everybody does. And I'm not being an old fogey about this.
No.
At all, you know. This idea of having a meta-universe. Who wants it? Our own universe is so lovely and so beautiful and so awe-inspiring. Why do you want a meta-universe, you know? Why do you want a meta anything?
It's always, I don't understand what its purpose is. I mean, there's new technology. Apple have these new like goggle things that are virtual reality, you know.
And I mean, and it is this business of getting so involved in developing these things that you imagine that everybody else will want it.
Yeah.
Everybody, we can do this. We can do this. We can. Well, yes, you can do it, but it doesn't necessarily mean that everybody wants it, or that it's going to benefit mankind necessarily, humanity necessarily. You know.
Do you think that's what people think about this podcast?
Probably. Yeah. They're thinking, why are these people bothering to waste time on the airwaves? doing this.
Well, do you know what? I think that's a lovely place to end. Slightly shorter episode, but we need to let Neil get off to bed after Budapest. Go
Well,
on.
just one last thing there, because coming back to Budapest, I do remember an occasion when you were a technician on Christmas Carol with Matthew Fuller.
Yes.
And basically, I took you both as a thank you for coffee and cake.
I do remember that.
Yes,
and
there
that was
we
at the very, very bougie... Doesn't exist anymore, does it? I think.
It's still there.
Oh, is it still
it's
there?
being renovated.
Oh, there you go. That I remember when we went to visit.
Very elegant coffee house.
Very, very
As
nice.
a thank you for their hard work. Who would have thought we'd be sitting here in my lounge among my suitcases, talking to you lovely people out there on the airwaves.
I know. Well, once again, thank you for listening. It's been another lovely, quite slightly shorter podcast, but nothing wrong with that. I thought we'd keep a nice light episode 2. Tune in next Wednesday for episode 3. We don't know what it's going to be yet. We will get to that after this episode, or maybe we'll let Neil have a day off and then we'll get back to it. And I think that's all. Any last notes?
Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. You've been listening to Hello Dear, presented by Ciaran and Neil. Follow us wherever you listen to podcasts for a new episode every Wednesday. In the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and TikTok under @HelloDearPod. Want to get involved further? Why not click the link in the description of this podcast and record us a voice message or type us a little hello with your questions, feedback or suggestions. See you next week.